Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we turn to talking about a new video game from the Tom Clancy series. For those who don't know, Tom Clancy is a famous book writer who has had his works be turned into movies and video games, both of which have become extremely popular in the espionage action-adventure genre. Essentially, he writes a lot of books about the Cold War, America versus Russia, lots of things to do with that. You know, there's a movie like The Hunt for Red October, there's lots of video games like the Tom Clancy Rainbow Six series, which may be about a different time period, but I think you get the point. Tom Clancy is a prolific writer who's had his works translated multiple times. And today, one of those works is called Elite Squad. A new video game is coming out, coming from Ubisoft, called Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. And they've come under fire for a very funny reason. Essentially, they included this logo within their game that was similar to the logo used by the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, this was a bad move for them on their part because, of course, the liberals started to come after them because of this. Because in the game, this logo is being used by the villains, and it's a sort of setup that's actually a bit too close to home. I saw this story a few times over the weekend, and I was thinking, yeah, I could see why liberals are upset because it's just too accurate. It's like really a good description of how the actual BLM is, but of course, it's put into this sort of exaggerated video game setting. Let's go ahead and check out this article. It says right here, it says, Ubisoft's Tom Clancy Elite Squad removes Black Power imagery after being accused of casting Black Lives Matter protesters as villains. Now, I find this pretty funny and interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't really get why they don't want the BLM to be cast as villains. I mean, they're villains. They're the bad guys in the world right now. And they're also very similar to what happens in this story. I'm sure the article will break it down, but before we get to that, essentially what happens in the story from what I've read so far is there's this military sort of terrorist group that uses propaganda across the country and pits people against each other in order to get their goals met. Now, if that sounds familiar, I mean, that's basically exactly what BLM's doing. They're a mostly American organization, but they had demonstrations in Europe and Australia and other countries too. They're certainly international. They're certainly using propaganda, like say, taking these arrests gone wrong and manipulating them to race bait them to get everyone else fighting in the public to attain their goals. I mean, they're terrorists. I don't know how else to put it. And that's why I think this story and video game decided to use them as a villain. And I think it's just super funny when these woke leftists get mad about this. They're like, oh my God, how could you make BLM the villain? And it's like, because you guys are the villains. I mean, they're out there destroying the cities. They're hurting people. They're race baiting. They're spreading lies. They're doing evil things. I don't know how else you would form them. Were they supposed to be the heroes? Would the heroes really go out and break down a store? Would they burn down a used car lot or some unrelated fashion area? No, that's not what heroes would do. This is obviously villain behavior, and that's why this thing's getting in trouble. It's exaggerating that too. It's not directly BLM, of course. I believe it's called Umbra, as you can see in this picture. Bring the system down. You can see the soldiers. You can see people with the hands up, and then the fist that is reminiscent of the BLM. Also a Black Power image. Now, yeah, that's all I have to say. They are the villains, and the liberals are just mad that they've been exposed, and this is too close to home. And in addition, it sucks that Ubisoft is already caving in, which is kind of a downer for me. Ubisoft has removed a Black Power symbol from Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, the franchise's latest addition to the mobile game market, after taking heat and being accused of casting BLM protesters as villains within the game. Again, this is the basis of the game. It's talking about terrorism, people writing signs on the walls, burning things down. I mean, this is not that far off from what BLM actually does. This is BLM style all the way. The accusation is based on the use of the Black Power fist imagery by the faceless terrorist organization known as Umbra, who used the symbol to promote an egalitarian utopia to gain popular support, while behind the scenes, Umbra organizes deadly terrorist attacks to generate even more chaos and weaken governments at the cost of many innocent lives. Now, again, where's the lie? Why is this so similar to BLM? Now, I get it. Now, I granted, Ubisoft, Tom Clancy, Elite Squad, they're taking a risk by trying to go after this. So I really do give them credit for trying to encapsulate things happening in current events. But again, there's just too much woke people in the popular culture, too many activists out there, and that's why they're getting triggered by this, and they're trying to say it's like racist or something, but it's like, yeah, this is very similar to what BLM does. BLM organizes deadly terrorist attacks. They've been doing that. They've been destroying cities. People have been dying at these riots. They've killed Trump supporters in Portland. They've hurt many people. They've destroyed their lives. And that's generating chaos too. It's weakening the government, the local governments at least. We still have a strong federal government, and President Trump is ready to go in if any of these places ask for help. But they have to ask first. There's a chain of command. There's an order of operations. So anyone trying to condemn Trump for not stepping in really needs to understand the fine, delicate nuances of this situation. And finally, it says cost many innocent lives. Like, yeah, there's a lot of innocent people, at least a dozen that I know of right away that have died at these riots. It's far worse than what they're protesting. They're trying to talk about being some sort of, racism in the country. They allege that this started because of police brutality, but we know that's not the case. This is just a very radical left-wing organization. They're admitted Marxists too. They say that they're a Marxist organization. That means they're trying to usher in, communism. They're trying to usher in far leftism, socialism. They want this country to go down that Marxist, Karl Marx, Brave New World type era. And that's just not what we want. That's very bad, Big Brother-esque, and going to be even worse than things are now, believe it or not. The fictional appropriation of the symbol, a long-used protest symbol, which has since been repurposed by the BLM movement, by the game's antagonists, sparked a wave of backlash across social media. Now, the way they phrase this is pretty interesting because BLM did appropriate the symbol themselves too. They're not the original creators. This is a symbol that's been around. It's just a common fist used by protesters and agitators and all kinds of terrorists and stuff like that. So I think it's even more relevant then because the Umbra group in the game appropriates the symbol too. They're trying to latch on to the historic meaning of it. They're trying to get in on the civil rights era aspects of it. And also that's what BLM's doing too. They're trying to act like they're civil rights leaders. They're trying to act like they're saving the population from racism when really they're not. They have ulterior motives, and nothing proves that more than if you follow the money. Just think about the money for an instance. Think about Black Lives Matter and how they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions. I mean, I know the NFL gave them like $100 million on their own. They've also raised money from every other major corporation. Tons of private citizens are donating too. We're talking about many, many millions of dollars. And then you got to ask yourself, where's that money going? Seriously, have you seen them do anything positive, anything at all with that money? I haven't seen any BLM sponsored schools. I haven't seen them sending Black people to college, paying for their school bills, giving them meals in a poor neighborhood. Like there's been nothing done with this BLM money. Now, I think there's some suspecting things done. There's a few people talking about it really just getting funneled back into the Democratic Party. That's been proven by some receipts that have shown BLM transferring money through Share Blue. Share Blue then goes and gives the money to the Democrats. It's basically like a funnel laundering situation, which is super messed up. And that's like politically corrupt too. That's very, very illegal. And yeah, besides that, I mean, where else is the money going? If you have hundreds of millions of dollars, couldn't you at least give some money back to these communities? Like they're acting like they want to help people. Why aren't they covering lawyer fees or, medical bills for Black people injured, like curing their cancer, getting them chemo treatment? Like there's a million things they could do with the money, but we still haven't seen one of them. Senior Forbes contributor Dave Tier published an article that claimed Ubisoft has long had trouble separating militaristic messages from games that it claims to be free of politics. Brendan Gibbons, a content writer for Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, even claimed that Ubisoft lied to them about how Umbra was going to be portrayed, as Gibbons claims that Umbra was supposed to be more like a James Bond villain organization instead of something looks like what the Q conspiracy people think is happening. Now they're bringing up this group out of nowhere, totally unrelated. These are just people backpedaling, embarrassed about their game. That is very accurate. Like I said, I mean, where's the lie? I don't see them proving any lies. I don't see them dispelling any of these comparisons between BLM and the game's Umbra. I mean, we already pointed out that they're all basically true. I mean, there's nothing to defend here. They're just attacking the game, and they're not even trying to defend the claims and the parody of it. It's an interpretation. I'm sure it's exaggerated too. Like these games are going to exaggerate things. This organization is probably going to be on a far different level. I mean, BLM is already pretty big. They have hundreds of millions of dollars, lots of organization, lots of violent wings to them. But, in a video game, it's going to go to another level. They're probably going to get some kind of super weapon, maybe like exterminate all the people in some city. There will be some kind of big mission. But as far as the basics, as far as the premise, it's really, really close to home. And I think that's why it's so offensive and also funny for me. Like, I enjoy seeing this because it really does bring to light how bad BLM is. Carnegie Mellon University professor Paolo Pernici commented, Tom Clancy's games have always been a bit fascistic, but this new one is casting BLM as the bad guys, and you have to fight them with a death squad made of special forces and criminals? Timely. Well, honestly, I would like that. I would like a game where you could go off against BLM people. Like, I'm not saying I would do that, anything like that myself. I'm not encouraging any real world violence, but it's just similar. I mean, it's like when you play a game about World War II and it's fun to fight against the Germans once in a while, or sometimes you flip the script and you fight against the West, the British and Americans, that's fine too. Like, either way is fun. And the fact that they want to make this game in light of current situations, I mean, it's very interesting. It's bold of them to try. I can't believe it came this far. And now they're backpedaling, which again is the worst part. So with all that said, with all that wrapped up, I think you guys get the point. Tom Clancy's elite squad has caved in to the haters. They had a really good thing going. I probably would have bought this game thinking about all this stuff going on, but it is a mobile game too, apparently. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I guess it's on phones. Like, Tom Clancy, again, this is a very prolific series. Not only did he write lots of books, they became movies and a number of video games. Rainbow Six is just one of many that I can remember. So there's good things out there. There's bad things out there. And at the end of the day, this was a woke kind of canceling of this idea for a new Tom Clancy game. Now, with that said, make sure you guys comment your thoughts on everything below. Let's get some conversation sparked down there. Let's talk about a few things in the messages below. Also, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. If you watched it all the way through, give us a like, help us get shared, subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications too. Until next time, have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow.